Hey everyone, Tax Hack Pro here. Before we dive into today's eye-opening story about the corporate exodus shaking up the economy, I need you to do me a quick favor. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for Tax Hack Pro right now, because we are about to uncover the financial truths the mainstream media isn't telling you. And if you have been with me for a while, share this video with someone who needs to see it. Trust me, by the end of this, you will understand why this affects every single American, not just Californians. Now here is what happened that nobody saw coming. Picture this. It is a regular Monday morning in Salinas, California. Workers show up to the Coca-Cola bottling plant just like they have for years, but something is different. Something is terribly wrong. Just days earlier, on Friday, Reyes Coca-Cola Bottling dropped a bombshell announcement that sent shockwaves through the entire community. They are shutting down the distribution site and consolidating operations in San Jose. Mayor Dennis Donahue tried to calm everyone down, saying only about a dozen employees might need to find other opportunities. But here is the thing. This wasn't an isolated incident. Just 1 month earlier, in June 2025, a Coca-Cola bottling facility in Napa County's American Canyon suddenly slammed its doors shut. 135 jobs vanished overnight. Poof, gone, families destroyed. Lives turned upside down. Governor Gavin Newsom was left scrambling for answers. And let me tell you, what we discovered goes way deeper than anyone imagined. This isn't just another plant closure, folks. This is part of a massive corporate exodus that is shaking California's economy to its very foundation. So the question everyone is asking is, what pushed America's biggest beverage giant to abandon its own backyard? Why are political tensions exploding like never before? And most importantly, could your state be next? Stick with me because the real story is about to blow your mind. Don't go anywhere. We are just getting started. All right, let's cut through the noise and look at the facts, because what you have been hearing might not be the whole truth. California's reputation as a business magnet has taken some serious hits lately. Turn on the news, scroll through social media, and you will see headlines screaming about a mass exodus from the Golden State. But here is where it gets interesting. The Public Policy Institute of California released a comprehensive brief in June 2025 that tracked company movements. And guess what? The numbers tell a completely different story than the panic-inducing headlines. Between 2018 and 2024, California lost a net total of just 11 corporate headquarters. 11, that is it. Far fewer than the public debate would have you believe. Now, before you think I am defending California's policies, hold on. Here is the nuance most people miss. Most of these departing companies were smaller firms, often with fewer than 500 employees. And they weren't all moving to the other side of the country either. Texas, Nevada, and Florida topped the destination list. And the reasons, lower taxes and easier access to talent, makes sense, right? But here is what is really fascinating. Nearly half of the departing firms cited high taxes and the crushing expense of doing business as their primary reasons for leaving. Another third pointed directly at regulatory hurdles, the red tape, the compliance costs, the endless bureaucracy. Yet, and this is crucial, California's churn rate for headquarters actually matches the national average. The state continues to attract new firms, especially in tech and biotech sectors. However, and this is a big however, the manufacturing sector tells a darker story. The share of state GDP tied to manufacturing dropped from 12% in 2010 to just 9% by 2024. Plant closures, particularly in food and beverage industries, have accelerated dramatically. Automation and global competition play their part, absolutely. But rising energy costs and compliance demands are adding unbearable pressure. For established brands like Coca-Cola, these factors force a brutal evaluation. Where do we invest? Where do we expand? And where do we cut our losses and pull back? The story of Coca-Cola's exit is part of a much broader economic puzzle shaped by policy, markets, and the harsh realities of running a business in modern California. Stay with me because what Coca-Cola did next reveals a massive shift in corporate strategy that is changing everything. If you want to stay ahead of these economic shifts and protect your own financial future, make sure you subscribe to Tax Hack Pro so you never miss an update. Here is where things get really interesting and, honestly, a little scary for American workers. Coca-Cola's global restructuring in 2025 represents a dramatic shift in how legacy brands operate. And it is a playbook other companies are watching very closely. Instead of investing billions in company-owned plants, Coca-Cola executives made a calculated decision to move toward what they call an asset-light model. What does that mean exactly? It means the company focuses on brand building, marketing, and product innovation. The sexy stuff, the profitable stuff. Meanwhile, the actual bottling and distribution, the hard work, the capital-intensive operations, gets handed off to specialized third-party co-packers. The company's leadership points to greater efficiency, lower capital risk, and the ability to move faster in a rapidly changing beverage market. Sounds great from a boardroom perspective, right? But here is what that restructuring actually looked like on the ground. Over the course of this transformation, Coca-Cola eliminated roughly 2,200 jobs worldwide. Let that sink in. 2,200 families affected. The company also discontinued 200 brands, including beloved names like Odwalla and Tab. The strategy is brutally clear. Focus only on the most profitable products and let outside partners handle the capital-heavy task of manufacturing. By 2025, the company's operating margin hovered around an impressive 30%, with free cash flow projected at $9 to $10 billion. These are figures that reflect the enormous financial benefits of outsourcing and streamlining. This asset-light pivot means Coca-Cola can scale up or down quickly, responding to new trends without the burden of maintaining dozens of aging plants. Instead of pouring hundreds of millions into upgrades or compliance for every facility, the company simply negotiates with co-packers who already have the infrastructure. The result? A leaner, more flexible operation that can weather market shifts and regulatory changes with ease. For Coca-Cola's shareholders and executives, this is brilliant business strategy. For Coca-Cola's workers and the communities that depended on those plants, it is devastating. The company's future is less about owning bottling lines and more about owning the customer's attention, manufacturing jobs. Those are someone else's problem. Now let me show you how this played out specifically in California, because what happened in Modesto reveals the human cost of these corporate decisions. Don't click away. This next part is crucial. Let's talk about real people and real consequences. Reyes Coca-Cola Bottling, one of California's largest beverage bottlers, began its own brutal round of consolidation in early 2025. In Modesto, the company issued what is called a WARN notice. That is the worker adjustment and retraining notification, announcing the permanent closure of its facility. 101 jobs eliminated by January. Gone just like that. This wasn't some struggling operation either. This facility handled bottling and distribution for major brands: Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, Monster Energy. These are products you probably have in your refrigerator right now. The Modesto plant was part of a network of more than 20 Reyes-operated facilities still active in California, even after the closure. But the closure that really set off the political firestorm was American Canyon in Napa County. When those 135 jobs disappeared overnight, it wasn't just a local story anymore. This became a statewide and eventually national conversation about what is happening to California's business climate. Critics of California's policies jumped on the news immediately. Business groups, editorial boards, and political commentators argued that the state's high taxes, expensive energy, and labyrinthine regulations are systematically driving employers out. They pointed to the bottling shutdown as the latest proof of what they call a hostile environment for manufacturers. The debate exploded across California media and quickly reached Sacramento. Lawmakers found themselves fielding angry questions from constituents. Policy analysts were called in to explain what was happening. Industry advocates demanded action. Some framed the closure as a dire warning sign, suggesting that more companies would inevitably follow unless the state fundamentally rethinks its approach to business costs and compliance. Yet here is where the story gets complicated, and why I keep telling you to stick with me through this whole video. The facts remain stubbornly mixed. That same Public Policy Institute of California report from June 2025 cautioned against overblown narratives. While manufacturing clearly faces steep challenges, the state's overall rate of company departures is actually in line with national averages. For every high-profile exit that makes headlines, there are new firms arriving, particularly in technology and biotechnology sectors. Even so, and this is what matters most, the loss of a major employer in a small town like American Canyon brings the conversation out of abstract statistics and into people's daily lives. We are talking about families losing income, communities losing tax revenue, and entire regions questioning their economic future. What did California's governor have to say about all this? That is coming up next, and his response, or lack thereof, tells us a lot. So here is where politics collides with economics and things get really heated. When the American Canyon plant shut down, everyone turned to Governor Gavin Newsom for answers, for leadership, for something. What they got was pretty much the standard talking points: Governor Newsom's office maintained its usual message, emphasizing California's strengths, the skilled workforce, the innovation ecosystem, the economic scale that makes California the fifth largest economy in the world. Sounds impressive, right? And to be fair, those things are true. But here is what didn't happen. No major public statements specifically addressing the Coca-Cola shutdown, no dramatic press conferences, no proposed immediate solutions. Now the governor's defenders would say he doesn't need to respond to every single business closure. California is massive, with hundreds of thousands of businesses. You can't hold a press conference every time one closes. That is a fair point. But the absence of a direct, forceful response didn't stop critics from filling that void with their own narrative. Opposition politicians and business advocacy groups used the closure as a fresh rallying point, renewing calls for regulatory reform and tax relief. Conservative commentators had a field day, pointing to the shutdown as definitive proof that California's progressive policies are destroying the state's manufacturing base. The story became less about Coca-Cola's business strategy and more about California's political direction. Talk radio exploded with discussions about the California exodus. Social media amplified the controversy. Business owners in other industries started publicly wondering if they would be next. The political pressure intensified as other states actively recruited California businesses with promises of lower costs and simpler regulations. What makes this situation so complicated is that both sides have valid points. Yes, California's costs are higher than most states. Yes, regulations are more complex. But also, yes, California continues to attract enormous investment in emerging industries. Yes, the state's market size and talent pool remain unmatched. The truth, as always, lives somewhere in the uncomfortable middle. The Coca-Cola closure became a symbol, a rhetorical weapon in a much larger political battle about California's future. And while politicians argued, workers in American Canyon and Modesto dealt with the very real consequences of unemployment. But wait, because if you think the Coca-Cola story is dramatic, what happened with In-N-Out Burger is even more revealing. Keep watching. You need to hear this next part. Now we need to talk about In-N-Out Burger, because this story perfectly illustrates how quickly facts get twisted in our current media environment. Major news outlets ran stories claiming that In-N-Out was relocating its headquarters to Nashville, that the iconic California chain was abandoning the Golden State, and that owner Lindsay Snyder was planning to move to Tennessee permanently. These reports spread like wildfire. Social media exploded. People were genuinely upset. In-N-Out Burger isn't just another fast food chain in California. It is an institution, a cultural icon, a symbol of California identity. The idea that even In-N-Out was leaving felt like a betrayal. Like the final proof that California had become unlivable for businesses. Here is the problem. Many of these reports blurred the line between personal and corporate decisions, and they fueled a narrative that wasn't entirely accurate. Commentators pointed to Lindsay Snyder's remarks about family challenges and the difficulty of doing business in California, framing everything as evidence of a hostile environment for employers. Editorials and talk shows seized on her words, linking the story to broader concerns about taxes, regulations, and cost of living. The coverage quickly shifted from business analysis to a public referendum on California's future. Critics accused state leaders of driving out yet another iconic brand. The story became another weapon in the political warfare over California's business climate. Amid all the noise, confusion grew about what was actually happening, with headlines amplifying speculation and increasing pressure on both In-N-Out and California policymakers. But here is what actually happened and why this matters. Supporters of In-N-Out's approach point to continued investment as evidence of deeper commitment that goes beyond inflammatory headlines. With 281 stores still operating in California, In-N-Out maintains a presence that absolutely dwarfs its footprint anywhere else in the country. Defenders argue that the decision to consolidate operations in Baldwin Park rather than abandon California altogether actually mirrors the choices of other major brands facing similar pressures. When Tesla announced its headquarters move to Texas in 2021, remember what happened. The company kept its engineering and design teams in California. Relocation doesn't always mean complete retreat. For In-N-Out, the opening of a Tennessee office is seen by many as simply a practical step to support growth in the Southeast, not a rejection of California roots. This perspective frames the company's actions as part of a broader pattern where California-born companies adapt and expand while preserving their legacy at home. The debate, then, isn't just about leaving or staying. It is about how to remain competitive while honoring your origins. It is complicated, nuanced, and doesn't fit neatly into political talking points, but that complexity is exactly what we need to understand. So, what does all this mean for California's future? Let's wrap this up with the big picture perspective you need to understand. Let's zoom out and look at what is really happening here. Because the Coca-Cola and In-N-Out stories are symptoms of much larger forces reshaping American business. Today, global brands are fundamentally rethinking where they make and move their products. As companies like Coca-Cola shift operations away from California, the ripple effects hit workers, communities, and the very identity of the state. The real cost isn't just lost jobs, though that is devastating enough. The real cost is the uncertainty over who or what will shape California's future. Will it be tech giants and biotech startups? Will traditional manufacturing continue its decline? Will California adapt its policies, or will it double down on its current approach? When a company as deeply rooted as In-N-Out questions its future in California, the message reverberates across every boardroom in America. Economic realities are forcing even the most loyal brands to reconsider their place. These aren't knee-jerk reactions or political statements. These are calculated business decisions based on costs, regulations, workforce availability, and long-term profitability. What happens next will shape not just business, but the identity of a state built on reinvention. California has always been about transformation, about being on the cutting edge, about leading the nation into the future. The question now is whether that future includes manufacturing jobs, or whether California fully commits to a service and technology economy, while states like Texas, Nevada, and Florida absorb traditional industries. For workers, this transition is painful and often unfair. A 50-year-old bottling plant worker can't easily retrain as a software engineer. Communities built around manufacturing can't instantly pivot to tech startups. The human cost of these macroeconomic shifts is real and shouldn't be dismissed. For businesses, the calculations are complex. California offers unmatched advantages: market-sized talent pools, innovation ecosystems, proximity to venture capital, and cultural influence. But these come with higher costs, more regulations, and increasing political uncertainty. Every company must weigh these factors differently based on their industry, size, and strategic priorities. For policymakers, the challenge is finding balance. How do you maintain environmental protections, worker rights, and quality of life while remaining competitive for business investment? How do you fund state services without driving away the tax base that pays for them? These aren't easy questions, and simplistic political answers from either side don't help. The Coca-Cola closure in American Canyon might seem like just another business story, but it is actually a window into the massive economic transformation happening across America. Understanding these forces is crucial whether you live in California or anywhere else, because these same pressures are coming to your state, too. All right, everyone. We have covered a lot of ground today, and I really appreciate you sticking with me through this entire deep dive. Let's recap what we have discovered, because this story is bigger than just Coca-Cola or California. We started with those shocking plant closures in American Canyon and Modesto. 135 and 101 jobs gone almost overnight. We learned that while headlines scream about a California exodus, the reality is more nuanced. Only 11 net corporate headquarters left between 2018 and 2024, though manufacturing is genuinely struggling, with that drop from 12% to 9% of state GDP. We uncovered Coca-Cola's radical transformation toward an asset-light model, eliminating 2,200 jobs worldwide while boosting profit margins to 30%. We saw how the political firestorm erupted, with Governor Newsom caught between defending California's strengths and addressing legitimate business concerns. And we untangled the In-N-Out controversy, separating media hype from the reality of a company adapting while maintaining its California roots. Here is the bottom line: America's economic landscape is shifting dramatically. Traditional manufacturing is under pressure everywhere, not just California. Companies are making calculated decisions about where to invest, and states are competing more aggressively than ever for business. The question isn't really whether California will survive. It obviously will. The question is what kind of economy it will have, and what happens to the workers and communities left behind in this transition. Now, here is what I need from you. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know before, if it gave you a more complete picture than the headlines, then smash that like button right now. It genuinely helps more people discover this content. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button for Tax Hack Pro and ring the notification bell, because we are covering these crucial economic stories that mainstream media either ignores or oversimplifies. Share this video with your friends, your family, your coworkers. Post it on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, wherever. These are conversations we need to be having based on facts, not just political talking points. Whether you love California or think it is a disaster, whether you are pro-business or pro-regulation, understanding what is actually happening is the first step towards solutions. Drop a comment below and let me know. Do you think California can turn this around? Are you seeing similar changes in your state? What would you do if you were governor? I read every single comment, and I love hearing your perspectives. Check out the video popping up on your screen right now where we dive into which states are winning the competition for California businesses and what they are doing differently. Trust me, it is eye-opening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of this community. And remember, knowledge is power. I'm the Tax Hack Pro, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep questioning.